Welcome back to Creative Media Practice Research Insights, the podcast where we explore how creative work becomes creative knowledge. I'm joined here today by Alison Norrington, writer, producer and founder of StoryCentral. Alison has spent her career building stories across novels, films, live experiences and multi-platform story worlds. In this episode, we're stepping away from production pipelines and industry strategy to look at something more intimate, the very beginning of the creative process. We're calling this episode Finding the Spark. It's all about where ideas come from, how we recognise them, and what helps them grow. So, let's dive in. Okay, Alison. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Do you want to do a little bit of a self-intro? I've done a bit of an intro, but maybe you have a unique vision that you want to kind of share with our listeners.
I'm not sure I have a unique vision, but I suppose to introduce myself, I would say I wear many hats in things that I do. So I came into the industry as a novelist and wrote 3 novels that were bestsellers. They were lots of fun to do. Then I realised I'd kind of taught myself how to do that. So I did a master's degree in creative writing and new media back in 2005, 20 years ago, and saw a whole new opportunity. So from there, as you say, I've gone on, I write books, I've written films, movie scripts, I've written on television series. That's kind of like the traditional platforms, if you like, theatre plays, journalism. But then also I've worked for theme parks. I did work for Disney Imagineering in LA for a few years, creating experiences that were very immersive in terms of people being in a space that's real, but also in VR and XR and AR to create experiences for people who potentially aren't in a physical space, but they're transported to that. Mm-hmm. So on the creative side, I think I've been very lucky that I've worked pretty much for every platform you can tell stories on, including post-it notes on park benches. Don't forget the analogue. But also, yes, I created StoryCentral as my company, which started off as my PhD blog, actually, back in 2009. And from StoryCentral, I go on, sometimes I work as a writer, sometimes I work in development, sometimes I work as a script kind of consultant. Other times I'm helping studios or networks or even brands build out an experience with a story from the ground up. So they're all the hats I wear. But there was no coincidence that I called my company StoryCentral, because that's the hub of everything that I do. That's the main hat, right?
And we met working on a transmedia project where you came in and helped us sort of really develop those early ideas and the story world, and that's kind of how we started to get to know each other. So when you think about the very beginning of a creative project, how would you describe that first moment of noticing an idea?
That's a really good question. Like, if I'm thinking of it from a personal perspective, like one of my projects, it literally is like a spark. You see something or you hear something and you're just like, there's something there that needs exploring. And sometimes it's a tiny little chink of something that you see in the armour somewhere, but you know it's something that you need to explore further. And I think it's almost like a gut feeling.
It feels, when it happens to me, it often feels like something kind of very intuitive and something very embodied rather than something up there. It feels like something comes alive, a sort of curiosity about that thing. Yeah,
and it's almost, like you say, not a conscious thing. I mean, I think once the spark is there, I run it through like a filter in my head of what could it be, where do I see it going, is there a commercial line or an opportunity with it? So it definitely starts to become more conscious. And sometimes it runs through that process and I realise it was literally just a spark, like a firefly that goes past you in the woods or something and it's gone. But other times, yeah, you're like, hang on, there's something here.
But that's good as well, because I kind of feel that I have lots of those sparks that still sat on shelves.
Yeah,
I
right.
call them the elf shelf.
Right.
They're on the elf shelf.
Yeah.
They're just waiting, because sometimes it takes another one of those sparks to go, oh, hang on,
Yeah.
there's 2 sparks now,
Yes.
and then there's 3 sparks,
Yeah.
and then, oh, now we have an idea.
That's right. They start to kind of corral around a nucleus of an idea. I think when that happens, you really need to like take it on, because you know there's something there that's a bit more robust.
Do you remember the last time you felt a spark, and what set it off?
Really good. Actually, I do. So one of the other hats I wear is I run presentations and lectures on cruise ships. So I always talk about story, or like how to start writing your book, or how does the entertainment industry work, and all of these kinds of things. And I literally just got off of a cruise yesterday, going up to the Arctic Circle, up to the top of Norway. Didn't see any northern lights. There was no sparks up there, sadly. But I think, yeah, so it did happen for me actually in the last 2 weeks on the ship. Because essentially, I'm on a ship alone with, let's say, 2,000 people. Because I'm alone, there's a lot of couples. People tend to be a bit curious about me at the beginning, like, why is she here alone? So the people don't really talk to me. And I kind of like that, because then I can sit in a coffee lounge, do my thing, have my laptop, but I'm not meaning to listen, but I'm hearing other conversations. And you've got this mass of people who are just looking like ordinary, everyday people, which they are, and you start listening to conversations that they have, and you realise the life stories and the experiences that some of these people have had. And there was a woman sitting not so far from me, and she was having a conversation with a friend. And I just got a spark, a sense that there was something there. And I don't know what it was, the way she was talking, perhaps. There was something about her attitude, which wasn't a bad thing. But I just felt there was a thing there with her. And I was like, I wonder who she is. I thought she was just a passenger. Turns out it was Anne Daniels, who is a polar explorer. She's won Pride of Britain awards. She was the first female to do both the North and the South Pole alone, right? She's just won loads of awards and in the Guinness Book of Records and stuff like that. And there was something about her tone that I thought, there's something interesting about her. I didn't realise who she was until 2 days later when I saw it all on the big TV screens, that she was doing a big thing in the theatre on the ship. And that is a woman with a story, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's just about like not closing off, being open, listening and seeing and all of that stuff.
You need to be receptive to those sparks.
Yeah, you do. You need to be tuned in.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, look, I obviously in London, I'm on and off of the London Underground a lot, and I sit on that train and I look around and everyone's on their phone. Everyone. And I think, honestly, if something dodgy was to happen, it's so easy. No one's paying any attention anywhere. The heads are down. I'm watching like businessmen in their smart suits playing Tetris on their phone. Oh my God. I always try and look and see what they're playing, So I think
tips.
it was very recently, but sparks happen for me very, very often, I've got to say.
So you work across novels, screenwriting, story world design and immersive experience. Do the sparks feel different depending on the medium?
That's a really interesting question. I think the spark, a good concept or an idea or a spark, is there regardless. But I think there's different ways that you can make it work, right? Yeah. So I think the spark has like different textures as well, depending on how it lands. So for me, if it's a novel I'm writing, the spark would, I would say, come from more of an emotional standpoint, right? Because if you're writing a book or a novel, you're able to explain how the characters are thinking and feeling in a much more deep way than you can if you're telling it for screen. So sometimes it's an emotional spark that I kind of run through my little process and realise, it's got a really deep emotional core to it. Other times, perhaps for screenwriting, it's more of a visual moment, right? So I have been known in the past to see people on the street, maybe a couple or maybe 4 friends, and they just look great, right? There's something about the way they're dressed, the way the four of them are there. And I have been known, a bit weird, I know, to take a photo of them. But then I'll go over and say to them, this is really weird, and I know you'll think I'm really strange, but you just look so great, and I just took a photo of you. Can I show it to you? And every single time they go, oh my God, it's amazing. And I go, do you want me to send it to you? So I'll airdrop it to them and I walk away, right? So it's, for me, that would be very like a cinematic moment that you just see this thing and that's the spark and you can see it rolling out as a film. For immersive experiences, it's definitely more spatial and sensory. It's about how does something feel rather than how does it look.
Sometimes it's a go into a building and go, oh, I could do something in here.
Yes.
I don't know what it is yet,
Yes.
but there's a feeling, a vibe of a building or a space. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a certain amplified sensory moment. So the sparks can be emotional, visual, or it may be like a more kind of embodied or a sensory spark.
Yeah.
Usually that ends up being exactly the medium on which I tell the story.
A lot of people in the immersive world talk about how often the starting point for their ideas is a building or a space.
Oh, right,
because it's often very location based.
Yeah.
So, what tends to feed your creativity? Reading, walking, films, people, habits, something else entirely?
Probably being nosy.
Being
actually.
nosy, yeah.
Because it's, again, I think connecting with your environment. Right, being able to I read a lot. I read everything, honestly. I hate it when people say, what's your favourite books you've read recently or your favourite movie or I can't tell you because I consume it and I tend to pull out the things that hit with me and then I let the rest go. Like a snake kind of sheds its skin, I leave it behind me. So I very rarely remember the names of things I've read or watched because I just process and take what I want from that, right? So, but I read a lot, and I think when we talk about story and experiences from a design standpoint, we talk a lot about storytelling, but for me, it's the listening moment. Like we have to listen back, we have to go through the world with our eyes open.
Absolutely.
And just, I mean, even our environment right now, right? Could be some amazing stories that we tell
absolutely.
right here, right?
You could tell lots of stories in it. There might even be a murder in it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Murder in the
not
podcast
in this room,
studio. I think that having a curiosity about the world is essential. You've got to be so curious that you just consume culture, and in a kind of almost perhaps in an indiscriminate way.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I agree. And I think don't take anything for granted, right? I would say 9 times out of 10, people aren't who you think they are, right? And I mean, we see people all the time, walking around the streets and whatever. I've been actually in big corporate buildings and there will be somebody in the room and they are like a complete powerhouse. Amazing creativity, business strategy. And I would look at them and think, God, if I saw you in Tesco's, I would not imagine that this is who you are and this is what you do, right? And again, on the other hand, you have people that dress the part, but they're completely, there's a persona they're trying to portray. So I think don't take anything for granted as well. Just have that curiosity and try to, I don't know, a bit like a scratch card, right? Scratch the little grey bit off the scratch card. There's always something you don't expect underneath.
How do you know the difference between an idea that has potential and one that's simply a nice thought?
Okay, so I think a nice thought, sometimes it feels like a spark and it will kind of circle around you and it's like an enjoyable moment, but there's no depth to it. It's quite shallow.
Doesn't resonate.
No. And it kind of
ping off lots of different things. Yeah.
And it sort of fades out quite quickly, right? You try to create something from it and it's nothing there that's solid. An idea with potential, I think it behaves differently to that. So I think an idea with potential is almost interrupting, right? You get this sense of it's growing when you're not looking. There's some gravity to it. It's got weight behind it. It almost kind of changes shape a little bit. Like a very weak idea remains static. It will never be more than that. But if an idea starts to ask questions that you don't know how to answer, right? Then there's something there. You think that's a good sign. It's an idea worth pushing and pursuing. And it feels like, you know, if you're going to go down that pathway, it's going to demand something of you. Right?
Yeah.
It's not going to behave in the way you think it's going to behave, which for me is quite compelling, because I then want to explore it even more deeply.
I actually feel the project we did last year, the Buto-inspired immersive experience, was very much like that, because we started off with a title, and that was The Spark. Rituals for Earthly Survival.
Nice.
And I have no idea what that was going to be, but it was like, it just kept pinging off things and pinging, and then there were lots of questions that kept coming up that we couldn't answer, but then we answered, and that was The Spark. It was just like, that's a great title. We can do something with that. You know?
Yeah, you know you've got something there. You're not quite sure what it's going to be, but you know there's something there.
Can you use my vocal cords and mouth coordinate
At the
there.
same time,
Yeah. Can you talk about a time when an idea arrived unexpectedly and you took and it took you in a direction you didn't anticipate?
Yes, absolutely. It's happened many, many times, actually, and I couldn't even pinpoint just one, because it happens quite frequently. So there was a project that I was working on for a brand, and they wanted it to be almost like a brand book. So like a kind of a mini sort of novelisation of how the brand came to be and the evolution of the brand over time. So I came into the brand, I did lots of interviews with people all through the company, on all levels of hierarchy through the company, and compiled what essentially was going to be this chronological story of their brand book. And as I got into this more, I realised at the heart of the brand, the way the brand, funny enough, was discovered was from a star, right? The two CEOs were out in South Africa on a Jeep safari at night, and there was a star in the sky, and that was their spark, actually, which ended up being this company that they'd created and done really well with. So they brought me in to create this brand book that they wanted more as something that their employees would enjoy reading rather than just brand guidelines. So anyway, that's what I was doing. And as that evolved more and more, I kept finding myself quite annoyingly going back to the star idea and their feeling of like awe and amazement at seeing this star and having the spark. So I was quite irritated because it meant this was now taking another shape, but I wanted to create something more experiential, because I said to them, if you really want your employees to read and enjoy your story, I would imagine you're trying to get advocacy from your employees, rather than just go, oh, well, I'm joining this company, let me read their story, good for them, la la, whatever. Like, don't you want to instill that feeling that you had in the people that are working for you? And they were like, yeah, well, that's exactly what we want to do. And I said, well, a book is not going to do that. You're essentially taking people who are working for you from longer than 9 to 5 and then asking them on top of that to go home and read your book of your story that you're very proud of. People don't care, right? If you really want to create that sense of passion and advocacy and loyalty to your company, you need to make them feel how you felt. That's the thing that's going to hold them in the moment. So the book ended up being a blueprint for a much bigger, longer project, which was that whole experiential. We did a series of retreats. We did a lot of online activities. We had like workshops that actually allowed the employees to show their skill set beyond their job. Like, who were all these people that sat at these desks in this office every day? What were the things they loved to do? What were their secret things? One loved, I don't know, boring stuff, making jam. One was a snowboarder. One made models out of matchsticks. You know, one was in a band. We had this brilliant sense of all these things that gave people their moment of their star. So what started off as a brand book ended up being this beautiful, immersive experience that rolled out over book, over a documentary, live experiences, workshops. I mean, this is right up your street. This is the kind of thing you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
I like the you used the word awe to describe that first moment that they had. And in that context, that absolutely makes sense. But I wonder whether there's something about a spark and awe that's always connected. Is that part of the that intuitive experience that we talked about, where you get that moment of like, wow.
Yeah, it's a hit, isn't it? It's definitely a hit.
Is, yeah.
And you can't make it happen. Like, I've recently got into photography, and I always take photos of things that I think other people don't take photos of. Probably find out everyone takes photos of those things. But the point is, I can go out and spend a day walking around a city looking for the things I want to take photos of to build my collection. I can guarantee I won't find it. Right? And then it's a random moment of like walking past, I don't know, someone on the street in those moments I talk about, and I'm like, oh my God, there it is. And I think you can't look for it. You can't. It's almost, you're focusing on something so tightly, it's evading you. You have to just be open to the hit.
Well, that comes back to that idea of having that kind of permanent curiosity, voracious curiosity about the world, because you kind of almost have to keep feeding, because you can't go out and go, I'm going to have an idea now. The ideas will just kind of come from all of those inputs, and they will come randomly, and sometimes I find brushing your teeth is good, and I think that's because it's stimulating the nerves that go into your brain. But anyway,
it's the simple things, right?
So once you've noticed the spark, what's your next instinct? Capture it, sit with it, test it. What do you do?
I kind of sit with it. I think if I try to capture it too quickly, you know, like if you grab sand in your hand and you try to hold it in your hand, and you hold it too tightly and it just all pours out from between your fingers and you're left with nothing. So I think to try to nail it too tightly in that moment, it has that moment, you kind of like, it evaporates. So I try to let myself sit with it. I try to not make any notes on it, but I try to park it in my brain and flirt with it a little bit, actually, right? See if there's something there, see if it's responsive. What is it? What does it feel like? Where do I think I want to go with it? And also then the big question, do I want to go somewhere with it, right? Because I think all of the creative projects we could take on, and if you're inspired by so many things every day, there's a series of decisions that you make, right? Like when I work with like film makers, for screenwriters, and they come up with new ideas, and I said, do you really want to give 5 years plus of your life to this project? And it's okay to say no. Right?
It's your life.
Right. Because you do have to prioritise which sparks or projects you want to actually dedicate. And it won't be like 5 years solely that of your life, but you know, to actually get a film made, you're looking at around 5 years at least to get it off the ground.
Well, even most projects, they take time to realise, and even if the project never comes about, you're going to commit some time and emotional intensity to that idea in order to kind of move it forward. Right. And that's part of your life, and you know, you don't want to be spending on something that you don't even enjoy.
That's it. Sometimes you can have a spark and you can go, oh my God, that would be such a great idea. I'd love to run with that. But you know, maybe a couple of days after sitting with it and realising potentially what you'd like to do with it, it's okay to just go, you know, let that one back out into the wild, right?
Yeah. So, do you have any practices, formal or informal, that help you grow an idea without overthinking it too soon?
I would say yes, but some people might think that it is overthinking it in some way, because if it's sat with me for a few days and I like it enough to maybe make a few notes about it, I then do switch into more of a kind of producer vibe, I suppose, because for me, I would answer questions that, like, what does success look like with this project? What do I want to do with it? Who do I think my audience are? As it stands, is there a commercial element to it that I actually could see myself, I don't know, pitching it to a network or to an agent or to a production company or whatever it might be? So for me, once I feel I've got something that's feeling like it's not going to escape me, I do go through that process in my head, because I don't really have time for projects that are just for me. I do like to see like pathways for my projects to go out to the world commercially. So I definitely go through that process of like, yeah, okay, has this been done before? If it has, could I give it a different spin or a different angle somehow? Where do I see it landing? Who do I see my audience are? How do I want them to feel about this? Is there a strong message here that actually drives it further? Or do I go, oh no, this is just Pride and Prejudice, this has been done 1,000 times and I'm not going to do it differently. You know, sometimes it just burns itself out.
Yeah. So collaboration is a big part of what you do at StoryCentral. So how do other people affect the spark? Or have you seen sparks emerge from collaborative working?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, hilariously, actually, working at Disney Imagineering, it's very, very collaborative. I would say for me, collaborators don't give me sparks. I think a spark has to really feel owned and discovered by you. So I don't necessarily would get a spark from a collaborator, but for me, collaborations expand the sparks, right? They kind of help to stretch your thinking or change or challenge some assumptions you might have about a project or where it goes. They might end up pushing ideas into shapes that you didn't expect. I think good collaborators are mirrors and amplifiers, and they really help you to kind of look back on what you're trying to do, how to make it better. I think they like reflect what's working and amplify what's possible. And I would say one of the most creatively collaborative places I've ever worked is Disney Imagineering. Like the clue is in the title, Imagineering, right? It's literally ideation, with no confines around that. Everybody knows ultimately it's something that will feature in one of the theme parks, whether it's an attraction or whether it's a pop-up thing, right? So everyone knows the final destination is Disney brand and something in the theme park, but that's absolutely not on the table in the ideation, collaboration, spark moment.
I think it's very important. When I do ideation sessions with the students I work with, I try to get them to say, at that ideation moment, there are no rules, there are no constraints. Crazy ideas. Yep. And I often see students when they're doing their ideation sitting there going, really like concentrating. It's like, that's going to kill it.
Yeah, right. But you know what I think the problem is? I think that for all of us, to some point, from when we're kids and we go through the education system at school, right, we are all set up to succeed, right? We're marked on our work. We're penalised for failing. And there's something with all of us that we're scared to fail. We're scared to get it wrong. You don't want to be the kid in the class who puts their hand up with the wrong answer. We're not in an environment where we're allowed to come up with stupid ideas,
Take
right?
risks.
Right, take risks, yeah.
I think that's really important
Me
to
too.
this ideation. Certainly at the ideation moment, be risky.
Right.
I think that's fundamental.
And you know what? Don't be embarrassed to have like a wacky, stupid idea that you think everyone in the room is going to laugh at. Because if you're with the right people, they won't laugh at it. Or maybe you want them to laugh at it, and then you've like hit the right point,
funny,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, so I just think it's such a shame, and I think it's about being brave enough to actually talk a bit of nonsense. And that was the great thing I found at working at Disney. Like, there was a rule before you stepped in the room: there are no bad ideas here.
I think it's fundamental.
Yep.
So, okay, well, what tends to block your creativity, and how do you navigate those periods?
That's a good question. I think sometimes blocking it is overthinking it, right? And again, that forced moment, me going out trying to find it, like you're just not going to find it. You might convince yourself you found it, but you'll get back home and a couple of days go by and you realise you've just made it up out of nowhere, and it's just a nothing thing. There was a time that I was really, really broke, right? I had no money, nothing. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to write some books, basically to a brief. And I'm going to get up every morning, 2 hours early, and I'm going to write exactly to the brief of what these publishers want. It was the most soulless work. I have ever done in my life. I hated it. I couldn't finish. It was boring. It was formulaic. My heart wasn't in it. And no, it just does not work. And I think sometimes when you're desperate, so I really have gone through periods in my life where I've had literally stolen a roll of toilet paper out of a pub or stolen sachets of sugar from Starbucks, right? I mean, it's been that bad over the years. I think when you're really, really stuck and you're really desperate, it's a tough call because there's more at stake with looking for the sparks, because you're looking for the thing that's going to give you a little bit of a break, even if it's just, pay the bills at the end of the month. So that's a real blocker. And I know that we can't do a lot sometimes to navigate around moments like that. But yeah, for me, overthinking, it's really tough. Desperation's really tough because it just doesn't channel the thinking. And I think to try to get out of those environments, I don't mean financially, but I mean to put yourself out in part of the world perhaps that's not your everyday place. Get out of the house, go for a walk in the park, go somewhere you don't normally go, sit and buy the cheapest coffee you can, or take your own and put it in a Starbucks mug and sit in Starbucks, right? And watch the world go by and just be open.
One of the things that I'm aware that fine artists do when they get stuck is they completely change their practice. So if they're like a potter, they might suddenly become a painter.
That's a great idea.
Because it's kind of like, well, what I want to do is put myself in a situation of constraint.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of the pedagogy of constraint.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those briefs can be really useful because they kind of force you to work in a different way.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it.
And it comes out. You know what? In the stuff I've written, the things that were real, things that made me laugh as I wrote it, are the parts that people have stopped me in shops or wherever I've known them and said, that bit, I loved it. You can feel someone's heart in the work if they've loved what they've done. And equally, if you're trying to perform to a formula, there's nothing there. It comes out in the work, definitely.
So, for early career practitioners, what advice would you give on cultivating a life where ideas can thrive?
Okay, so I would say if you're working in the creative industry, you realise it's not always talent that sustains you, right? I think it's a sense of openness. It's being willing to fail. It's being willing to come up with the wacky, crazy ideas. I would say stay open to ideas, stay open to kind of seeing things and being curious about things that you take for granted. Try to surround yourself with things that feed you and not drain you. That includes certain types of friends I've felt in the past, right? So put yourself in a good space with people that are championing you and backing you, and they've got your back. Be curious about everything, not just stuff in your field. Some of my maddest work has been writing a biography for a guy who was a big player in the Indian steel industry. I knew nothing about that, right? So, I mean, in a way, say yes and figure it out afterwards, I would say, right? Let your interest be messy and non-linear. Just feel like you've got the freedom. Definitely don't wait for permission.
Yeah.
If you sit back and wait for permission, you'll be sitting there forever. Yeah. Let your experiments count, push the boundaries. And honestly, I would say have fun with it.
Have fun, yeah.
If you're not having fun, it comes out in the work.
So what keeps your curiosity alive?
My curiosity, I don't know. I just think that I am just generally quite curious about everything, right? Like there's that television series about what it's like working in the factory that makes Kit Kats and stuff like that. I love them things. Probably, I just love that stuff. I want to know, because I think, right, say if we live to be 90 years old, right, we'll never experience all the things we want to experience, which is why I think storytelling's so great, because it allows us to put ourselves into a role. I always think with those movies where there's a vigilante, right? Liam Neeson movies, right? The daughter gets kidnapped and he goes and he's this vigilante. I always thought I would be that character. Until I was in a hotel and a guy broke into the hotel room and I fainted. I thought I was going to be a ninja. I was not a ninja, right? So I think storytelling is great because it puts us in these roles that we could never, ever be in. And I think to to be curious about what would it be like. You know, even in terms of a doctor wears a white coat. If we were wearing white coats, I guarantee we would behave a little bit differently. Our posture would change, the way we speak would change, right? So how would it feel to embody even somebody else's clothing? It affects so much about how we engage with the world. So for me, it's just constantly being curious. I literally look at people on trains or in supermarkets and think, I wonder what it would be like to be, you know, 6 foot tall with really long legs and wear that dress that she's wearing, because it wouldn't feel like me at 5'4" in my jeans and trainers.
So when you think back along that long arc of your work, what excites you about the next spark? Is there something that you're kind of anticipating, or you can't really anticipate these things, but
no.
What's next?
What is next? I don't know what's next. I think what excites me is that every spark has the potential to sort of change me and my outlook, right? I like that. I think each new idea asks something different of me, like creatively or emotionally or technically, like especially as technology evolves constantly. So I love that. I also love that the next spark could come from anywhere. It could be a conversation or a song or a coincidence or a moment. I love that too. But I also like the fact that to connect a story to a spark, like that's where the long game happens. Yeah. So I don't know where the next one will come from. I have no idea where it come from. And that's, I think, the whole essence of a spark. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in how people can build out their ideas, understand how to create great experiences for people emotionally as well as physically, but also then as AI's on the platform and on the table now, how that's going to evolve, how creatives work, how audiences receive work, how we can keep the heart in the stories and the experiences we build and not let that be taken over by an AI.
I think it's the thing that we definitely need to hold on to.
Yeah.
And it may be the last thing that we have.
Right.
So on that really doom-laden note, is there anything you would like to add that we haven't talked about here?
I don't think there is really, because for me, I suppose I'm all about empowering people to be their best version of themselves. So yeah, just to kind of not be afraid of coming up with stupid ideas, because they're actually not stupid ideas. No. They may not be the right idea in the right moment. But for me, it's all about that. Like, keep being playful. Enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy what you do, find something that you enjoy doing it.
Well, I always say to students when they're ideating is like, if you don't have crazy ideas, you know, that crazy idea, the one that you're embarrassed to tell everyone about, might have been the one that was going to make you a multimillionaire.
Absolutely.
And you've gone, oh, no.
Totally. I mean, Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad, right? He was inspired to do Breaking Bad by watching a homeless guy who was a drug addict on the street. He went into HBO and pitched it, and they kicked him out the room, and realised that he had to reframe that spark moment in a different way. And from that, it's a long story, and I know we haven't got time for it. That's how Breaking Bad came to be.
Okay, so Jesse was the spark, not Walter.
Yeah, it's great.
Interesting
really
stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
Alison, thank you very much.
Thank you,
really
Roy.
Enjoyable conversation.
It's fun.
In this episode, no, hang on, that's the intro. I'm going to do the outro now.
Okay, that's always a good idea to do that at the end.
That's the bit that comes at the end, isn't it? That brings us to the end of today's episode of Creative Media Practice Research Insights. A huge thank you to Alison Norrington for sharing her reflections on curiosity, instinct, and the early moments of creative thinking. If you've enjoyed this conversation, you can find more episodes exploring practice-led and practice-based research on our podcast feed. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep noticing the sparks.
Yeah, very good.